Hey guys, it's Nemo and welcome back to another episode of World of Warships. Today we are taking out either everybody's favourite or everybody's most hated Tier 10 battleship, the HMS Conqueror. Now the Conqueror, a lot of people struggle to play because they play her like as if she's a tanky battleship. But the Conqueror is actually a very, very big cruiser. And why did I say that? Well, she has pretty good guns. They fire around 26 to 24 seconds depending on if you've got AR and how much damage you've taken. They're 419 millimeters, and you can run the option of the 457s. They supposedly they get an accuracy increase, but I've never noticed it. The 419s, you have 12 guns. The 457s, you get 8. And so you're losing 4 guns, and you don't really need those big guns to do the damage with the Conqueror, because the Conqueror has lots of good high explosive shells that you can fire. With a quarter pen on them, they do quite a big bit of damage. You might have noticed my last Conqueror game where I broke my first 200,000. I was penning Yamatos for well over 10,000 damage just with high explosive. And this is why we call her the big tier 10 cruiser, because she plays more of that cruiser role where first you come in close. And as you can see, I'm moving in towards, the only reason I deviated there was the Des Moines was in the way. I'm moving towards my Kitakazi, and I'm going to go in behind him to support him. Now the Conqueror can do this very, very well because she has a 12.3 kilometer surface detection. So you come in close, you get ready to help out your destroyer, you surprise whatever other destroyer pops up and gets seen, because you can hit it with the armor piercing as well as you have short fuse armor piercing shells, which is a trait of the Royal Navy ships, and that's why it's very hard to try and do any damage to broadside battleships at certain ranges. Very close, you're quite good, but the further you get, it can be a little hard until you reach that plunging fire distance, where then all of a sudden you're plunging the short fuse armor piercing straight down through the deck and the superstructure, and that can cause quite a bit of damage. But with the Conqueror, most games you're going to be slinging a lot of high explosive. Now in this game actually I don't throw that much high explosive as what I thought I would, and I tried to do that deliberately to show you how good the AP can be when it's used and used correctly. So we're into a position here, we're starting to turn out a little bit. As you can see, my surface detection is well over the cap. Now usually what you'd want to do is line up that bottom part of your detection. As you can see, my detection's on the G line at the moment. You want to line up that detection at the back of the cap that your destroyer is contesting. And then what you can do is wait until you're spotted, and then you can use that as an indicator to know that your destroyer is about to spot something or about to get spotted before he can spot something. Now the Conqueror it suffers from the same problem that all Royal Navy battleships suffer from. She has very good high explosive shells, but she eats a lot of high explosive damage. Now a lot of people think that she's tanky because she has a super heal, but that doesn't make her tanky. That just means she has the biggest health pool to get burnt down out of any ship in the game because of this super heal. Now here we can see I was waiting for his broadside with the armor piercing. Now I'm detected, but because I've got that reload, not too bad, 9.5 or 9, nearly 10,000, 9.8. I'm about to go undetected, and this is one of the good things about playing the Conqueror, like as if she's a big cruiser or that close-in support gun platform. As you can see, I'm sitting on the D line, and yeah, look at that, nice big chunk. See how that, if you get that really good broadside within that closest range to medium range with the armor piercing, you're going to do quite a fair bit of damage. Now I'm about to go, well, I would have gone undetected, except he's in my detection range. And it makes the Conqueror a really good ambush battleship. Extremely good ambush battleship, because you can fire, go dark, relocate, and then pop up somewhere else and absolutely wreck something. Or you can see what I'm doing here and just hold the D line down and wreck things that come out broadside to you. A lot of people do not fire armor piercing straight away in the Conqueror, but if you're playing the Conqueror, load up that armor piercing straight away. And the reason is, as I say for all my other British battleship commentaries, is that people think that you're going to fire high explosive straight off the bat, and then they do silly things like come broadside to you, and then once they're broadside to you, you hit them with that surprise armor piercing and it absolutely wrecks them. But as you can see, I've been doing some pretty good damage with my salvos, and it's all armor piercing so far. And it has a relatively good penetration, but when you get to that, it's let's just say it's not as good as American or Japanese or anything like, or now Russian. You know, everything's Russian at the moment. The entire meta has gone to Russian battleships. In fact, the Conqueror is a very good counter to Russian battleships, because if you play the Conqueror like a kiting cruiser, then you can use your high explosive, which has, I can't remember the exact values of the penetration, but you will penetrate the Kremlin's deck armor very easily. The Conqueror is an absolute massive threat for Russian battleships because of its high explosive penetration. Now, the only problem is that if you are playing the Conqueror as a kiting cruiser style, you're taking yourself out of the support role. And the Conqueror does very well at that close to medium range support role. Instead of being back on the A line or the J line like you see most Conquerors playing, the closer you are, the better it is to be able to help out. You haven't got, as I said, you haven't got that massive detection that other ships have. Now you can see I've loaded up the high explosive here, and the reason I've loaded up the high explosive is because that North Carolina was a little bit more angled than I would have liked with the armor piercing, so if I can get him on fire while he's trying to run away, same with the Republic here, get them on fire while they're running away, and you just absolutely farm their salty tears. So I'll switch back to the armor piercing, hoping that one of these guys will give me a bit more broadside. The North Carolina's turning out, so I don't know how much I'm going to do. And it's still a relatively good chunk, because he wasn't as angled as what he would have liked to have been. Now, the reason I'm going north here is that I'm about to have 1, 2, 3, 4, as you can see, ships along that bottom line push underneath. And I've last spotted the enemy destroyer in the north, so I'm going to go and make sure that nothing comes behind us. That's why I've gone back to the north here. Now, it might take away some of the damage numbers I was able to do, because I can't keep following the Republic and the North Carolina and farm them, but really, playing the game, defending the camps, getting the win, I think is more important than trying to have massive damage numbers. If you know, the wins give you credits, wins give you experience. If you have 150,000 average damage but you've only got a 35% win rate, what's the point? So we're even on ships and we're down points, and the reason we're down points is because we've lost 2 battleships compared to their only have lost 1. So we've got the 2 caps, eventually that'll add up as long as we stop losing ships. So what we're going to do is try and go this way, cordon off the enemy, make sure that the enemy destroyer is not going to come through. We have lost another ship in the north. He was our fourth loss, and now I'm just trying to get up here to take some heat off the Charles Martel and protect the Charles Martel. You might not be a tanky ship, but when you are able to push, and some of you guys might have seen my Dev Strike compilation where my Conqueror, I hit the Musashi, he comes around the corner and I absolutely delete him. The Conqueror, when it is able to, when there's no threat of, let's say, torpedoes or an island where there's a Worcester sitting behind is going to absolutely melt the Conqueror. The Conqueror can be very, very good as a pushing battleship. Because she has the super heal, she can take a little bit of damage. And she's fast, she's relatively sleek, so other enemy ships have a little bit of trouble when she pushes. And the reason they have the trouble is when she pushes because her turret traverse isn't too bad either. She reloads relatively quickly. If you have one of the special captains on, one of the Dunkirk boys like what I do, you can get your reload down pretty well, and you can hit them. You hit your enemies hard, especially with that short fuse armor piercing. Short fuse armor piercing is very, very good at getting rid of cruisers. The Conqueror is the best anti-cruiser battleship in the game. Most of the other battleships that are coming out, they've all got these big 457mm guns, and most of them will over-penetrate, if not all of them, will over-penetrate cruisers a ridiculous amount of times. So I've turned out here, I have seen where the Asashio was, and I just don't want to, I want to know that if I get spotted, I can sort of cordon this area off. He has to go through me to be able to get around to my teammates. The Asashio has a torpedo reload booster which will cause you a lot of trouble. He's no real threat to the cruisers, but he can spot the cruisers. And spotting the cruisers, especially when there's Yamato around, is just, it's death for the cruisers. For some reason the 460mm guns stick in the ship so much better than all these 457mm guns that are coming out. Don't know why, they just do. It might be something with the Yamato. The other thing about the Conqueror is that her shells are not very heavy. They're relatively floaty, so when you do fire the guns, make sure you give a little bit more lead than what you usually would. Not American style lead, because American style shells, even with their battleships, are quite floaty, but they're definitely not Russian or Japanese. You have to give that lead so that you don't go missing all your shots. It's one thing that you sort of get used to after you've played the ship for a while. And in saying that, having these floatier shells means that you can get the shells over the islands just a little bit more than you usually would with other battleships, even other cruisers. And it makes the Conqueror even more dangerous. If your positioning's right, it's even more dangerous than other battleships, because you just look up over the island and you put the shells up and over the top of the island. Now, see, as you can see there, they sort of lose a bit of drag. See, as they were coming up there towards the top of their flight, they started to get a bit, not lose drag, sorry, they started to get a bit of drag on them, a bit of air drag, which would slow them down. And because of that air drag, with the shells not being so heavy, and this is why I don't understand the American mechanics properly, the super heavy armor piercing shells shouldn't have that drag as much, but they do. You know, we don't always understand the mechanics of the game or why the game is made the way it is, but that's the way it is. So we get a good citadel there. As I said, best armor piercing shells for anti-cruiser gameplay. So if nobody dies on our team, we'll wrap this one up relatively quickly. So I'll just take a quick look over the mountain, fire off another shell. The enemy Yamato goes down, and it's just a matter of seconds now. So, not a bad game, no kill, but we're in positions to force the enemy away, and that's what you want to do with your Conqueror. You want to make sure that the enemy's not going to come near your team, not going to come near your destroyers especially. Didn't finish all the way up there, but 1300 base XPs, that's fine, perfectly fine. You did your job, and that's what that's what we ask for when you play the game. Do your job. So what do? We're going to go with premium consumables. The 457s, I wouldn't worry about them. Just wouldn't worry about them at all. 419s are perfectly fine. Looking at our modules, we're going to go with main armaments mod 1, damage systems control mod 1 for our to put out our fires. We're going to have aiming systems, a bit more accuracy. Their shells aren't that accurate. Damage systems mod 2, or you could run propulsion. Then we're going to go concealment, and then definitely main battery mod 3 to get those guns firing a little bit faster. Our captain, well, first things we're going to do is go with priority target. Always priority target to know who's firing at you, how many are firing at you. Then you're going to go expert marksman, because those guns turn extremely slow. If you run one of the Dunkirk brothers, perfect for this. Basics of survivability, because you do burn relatively easily, and then concealment expert to get that 12.3 concealment. AR, extremely handy on every battleship, and expert loader is another skill that I would always recommend on a battleship to get those swaps between your shells, to make sure you're always firing the right ammunition at the right enemy and target. So, the Conqueror, not a bad ship at all. Actually, it's my favourite tier 10 battleship, and being a cruiser main, I'd say that's probably why. I love cruisers. You play the Conqueror like a big cruiser. Sometimes you push her like a Kurfürst, but that's very rare. So all in all, just don't play it on the A line or the J line. She's not built for that. She's a better ship than that. A better ship than that. Anyway guys, thanks for joining me, and stay safe out there.